and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm going to kind of dive into the news and everything and how it relates to the first thing I'm going to go over. And it's the battle basically on you and I. And, you know, we have these battles with these extremists and extreme countries overseas. And then a lot of times you also see that, well, we promoted the war over there or the destabilization of countries for kind of selfish reasons. And you're amazed sometimes at how much attention they can pay to us, that they can invade our lives. Well, you know, it's something where we become the battlefield, and you know, they've said it in their own ways. And you know, I look at so much information, and it becomes so evident to me. And I've been reading this book here, a little farther than halfway through it. Battlefield America, I had it pre-ordered, and I didn't have the time for a while to sit down and actually start reading it, but I recently started going through it. And it's by John W. Whitehead. And if you don't know who he is, you should really look into him and the institution he's with. But Battlefield America, the war on the American people. And it really is a good book. And it's something that you should, read, pass along. Right here it has on the front a quote from Andrew Napolitano. I challenge anyone to read this book and try to go to sleep. I found it impossible. You look at the back, you have one here from Paul Craig Roberts in his compelling book Battlefield America. John W. Whitehead describes the danger posed to liberty and humanity itself by the control impulse of government and technology. Lou Rockwell, John Whitehead is freedom's defense lawyer. He'll never give up, and neither must we. And, Ron Paul, Nadine Strawson. It's really, really a good book. Well, the institution he's with is Rutherford And he was recently with Ron Paul, and Ron Paul did a Liberty Report with him, Battlefield America, and he sits down and discusses the new book and the war on our civil liberties. So I'm going to go ahead and cue this up, and then we'll talk about it a little bit and then get into some of the news.
Everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Peace and Prosperity. Daniel, good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Good. Daniel, we have a special guest today, and his name is John Whitehead. And John, welcome to our program.
Hey, thanks for having me on, sir.
John is an enthusiastic supporter of civil liberties. He's been involved for a long, long time. He started the Rutherford Institute in 1982, so he's been at this and has done some many great work. But one thing we want to do today is to talk a little bit about his new book, Battlefield America, and the subtitle is The War on the American People. I do want to read what our friend Judge Napolitano said. He says, I challenge anyone to read this book and then try to go to sleep. I found that impossible. So that ought to get some people interested in reading it. But John also, 2 years ago, had a book, A Government of Wolves, which is a very popular book, and I understand it's still selling very well. So he's on to a very important subject, and one, of course, that we have dealt with at this channel for a long, long time, and that is of civil liberties. And John, why don't you give us a brief update of where we are right now? You started in 1982. Has it been all downhill? And what is your goal when you have had the Rutherford Institute? You've had several books. You've had these two very successful books. So what is your ultimate goal, and how do you see things going?
I want people to wake up to the reality of what's going on around them. I mean, a lot of people I talk to don't seem to know what's going on. Seasoned journalists I've talked to, I've actually said on some of the so-called mainstream shows, do you realize there's 80,000 SWAT team raids going on across America on an annual basis? And they go, what? You know, like they don't know what's going on. They don't report it. And we, you know, Dr. Paul, we live in a surveillance state right now, a militarized police state, and I'm trying to get people to wake up and to get active. I think there are things we can do. I think you look at some of the great historical figures as Martin Luther King and others who got active out there. We can do some things, but we're going to have to wake up really soon to what's going on. Hopefully some people are waking up right now. The American society I see right now, in my opinion, is undergoing a nervous breakdown. We could be moving and transitioning into a super surveillance state. It looks like that's what's happening to me. I think we can change some things, but I think you're going to wake up to that reality, get tuned in. Nothing's changed. Obama was supposedly going to demilitarize the police. That has not happened and will not happen. The NSA, as you know, through the USA Freedom Act, was not reformed. They're still downloading 2 billion of our emails on a daily basis, 400 million text messages, and hacking into 160,000 Facebook pages on a daily basis. They're still doing what they're doing. So we live in that state, and I'm looking around today, and I'll be honest with you, I'm like Judge Napolitano when he said he had trouble sleeping. As I see the current events happening across this country, this Confederate flag hubbub going on right now, it's right out of Orwell's book, 1984, Newspeak. How do you get people to stop thinking? You take away symbols, you take away words. People don't debate anymore, and they become like complacent sheep. And I think that's exactly where we're headed today.
Right.
Well, I have to say that at the Institute, we feature your articles with your permission quite often. And I have to say, reading them, first of all, it is a real fright. But I have to say it's a delight to read because you pack so much information. It's all so well sourced. And it is just an incredible thing to read these articles that John does every week. But, you know, one of the things I wanted to ask you, John, you sort of touched on it just now, but as I read your work and think about it, I think about the media, the mainstream media. You know, a couple of months ago, I think you did an excellent column on the reality TV show and how it just emphasizes people's brains. But how do you, when the media tells us, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, How do we break through this hold that they have really on the majority of the population?
Well, they have a tremendous hold. You know, they form public opinion, and as I show in my book, The Battlefield America, Carl Bernstein of Woodward Bernstein fame said that the CIA, NSA, they vet newspapers and TV channels. They mentioned some of the largest, New York Times, they're vetting news. It's going to be difficult. As I show in my book, the average American watches 150 hours of television a month, and I'm talking about, you know, mainstream media, reality shows, and all that garbage you see on television where people don't think anymore. What I'm asking people is, hey, if you really believe in freedom, you're going to have to turn the television off for a while. Maybe give me 1/3 of those hours, or the nation 1/3 of those hours for freedom. The average young person, by the way, is up on screen time today on either a cell phone, a laptop, or whatever, 8 hours a day. If you're tuned into that unreality, and it is unreality. We live in a real world. The virtual world, you're not going to do much at all. So how to get people off of those today? I see it as an addiction and a drug. And as I show in my book, these social psychologists saying we're facing cultural death if we don't wake up pretty soon and get active in our local communities. And I think that's where we have to start.
Well, John, there was one quote that you used in your book that caught my attention. And once again, this gets people's attention, and that is you used Hitler as a quote. And he says for what he wanted to have success, that you have to have constant and regular employment of violence. And that says a lot. And that's what you're talking about. From what I read and what you're saying is there is a lot of violence, but it looks like it's violence of the state against the people, whether it's through propaganda or the physical violence and the spying and the arrests and all the laws and rules and regulations. But, you know, the one thing is we do use labels. And in this case, I think the libertarian principle of no violence sort of contradicts everything that Hitler says, because we take a pledge not to initiate it. But once again, on the labels, what I like about what you do and say, and I make an effort to do this, is to wake up not just the hardcore libertarians, they generally are pretty good on civil liberties, but, you know, this is an opening for constitutional conservatives, good, decent liberals who are sincere, and then you have the libertarians. So in many ways, we bring together, and it has to do with the very theory of your book, and that is the use of violence and how are we going to curtail the government's use of violence. But as far as I can tell, as long as people want the welfare state and the warfare state, they've endorsed violence, and that is our challenge, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people do endorse violence. I mean, when I write some of my columns, I'll get it from different directions saying, why would you criticize the police? Well, I'm not basically criticizing all police, but I'm criticizing the cop who shoots an unarmed citizen in the back, who slams someone who disagrees with him on a sidewalk, who doesn't want to show an ID, slams them face down and breaks their skull open. But we mentioned Hitler. That's how the Nazis transitioned. Like I say, the government, the society I see right now, to me, is undergoing a nervous breakdown. It happened in Nazi Germany, and I talk about it in my book. They used that to transition into a total surveillance state where everybody was basically controlled. And people forget in Nazi Germany, 80% of the population most of the time lived pretty well. It's that 20 or 30% they were shelling off to the concentration camps. But that's the kind of situation we're moving in now. Like I say, I think we're in a transition right now into a total surveillance state. And Aldous Huxley said it in his writing, Brave New World Revisited. That was the transition. When they start cracking skulls, people get afraid, they start getting in line, and they don't object anymore. And I'm seeing that across the quarters. There are some people who are standing up, but as you say, according to Hitler, he knew well. Another quote in there by Hitler, by the way, he says, if you can get people together in groups and make them march and Sig Heil, they stop thinking. As I show in my book, scientists say when you get people in groups and get them together and they go, oh, yeah, and they all march in the same direction, no one's thinking. And one social psychologist called it we-ness. In other words, we get together and we do this, but that individual starts looking strange. The Ron Paul, the John Whitehead, whoever is out there saying we don't disagree. And so you get kind of pigeonholed. But the thing is that I see a growing movement, by the way. A lot of young people are getting fed up with what's going on, and they're starting to distrust the government more and more. And James Madison said it best, the fellow who wrote our Bill of Rights, we ought to mistrust all those in power. And I say that should be the philosophy of every American citizen.
Right.
That's a great point about people stopping thinking. You know, Gustave Le Bon wrote the famous book about the mob and the mob mentality. And you made a reference to it earlier in your talk. We're seeing a lot of that today. People want to rip down the Jefferson Memorial now, and they're ripping down statues, and it's like this kind of collective insanity when this happens. But you know,
it's news speak. It's right out of Orwell. If people are not debating, I mean, how do you destroy history? You have to completely destroy it so people don't think about it anymore. We don't want to think about slavery anymore. We don't want to think about those things. As I quote Rod Serling, the guy who wrote the Twilight Zone series, a great commentary, he says, we need the concentration camps to keep standing even though they're empty as a reminder of how cruel we can be. We need those landmarks. Mm-hmm. But people, again, I don't think the government, the mainstream media, which they seem to work hand in hand, they don't want us to think. Mm-hmm. If you think, you start rebelling. And what George Orwell say? You can't become conscious until you rebel. So give me a few more rebels out there,
right.
folks.
John, I want to ask you about a specific case going on and see how you analyze this. And it has to do with an event that's ongoing or coming to Texas, and that's that Jade Helms issue. It involves, you know, the use of the military and the concern that even our own governor has expressed. Of course, we've seen the U.S. military training in different states, you know, numerous times. So do you see this a little bit differently? Should we be concerned, or should we try to calm people down and say, hey, look, the military's been in every state and they're welcome because that brings money to the state. So that's sort of a mixed bag. But in Texas, it's a big issue, as it is for a lot of other people around the country. What's your assessment of this?
Well, my study of Jade Helm, you know, the slogan for Jade Helm is mastering the human domain. Well, I looked in to see what in the world were they talking about, mastering the human domain. And what the military has come up with this idea, and this is not just the military, by the way, this is working with the NSA and the other groups, is they're infiltrating the population, military. They're learning how to put down, basically find who the rebels are. It's almost like predictive policing. They're studying how to do this. By the way, the Department of Defense has the Minerva Research Initiative now with a number of universities. They're actually doing research projects on how to put down civil social unrest. Well, you know what that is. That's free speech activity. Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, a lot of this Jade Helm stuff is basically coordinated by behaviorists, by the way. And we've actually studied the urban crisis actors. If most people don't know those exist. They're coordinated by the Department of Homeland Security and other agencies. They're hired actors. They study with behaviorists on how to infiltrate groups. The FBI, by the way, has been doing that since the 1960s. But infiltrating groups, some of them were in the Ferguson protest and the Baltimore protest. So I think what's the concern the government is now, I think they're trying to predict if there's a great social unrest, the unrest might be an economic collapse or whatever, or people just get fed up, is how to put it down very easily. And it will be by infiltration initially, but sooner or later it will be cracking skulls if they think people get out of hand. So should you be concerned about Jade Helm? Yeah, if you really study it, and I'm by the way, in a couple of weeks I'm doing a column on it where I'm going to be talking about all this stuff. But no, it's pretty freaky stuff. It's the government using psychological and behavioristic methods to control the population.
You know, John, I was in the Congress during the episode for 9/11 several years afterwards, but that was a big event for everybody in this country. And of course, the Patriot Act came of that. And 9/11 and this whole thing, I see as being used as an excuse for something they wanted to do anyway, because we know that the Patriot Act had already been written. But you know, with and they were ready to go. Yeah. So, but would you agree that they were able to use this crisis very well to do exactly what they've been wanting to do? At least a lot of people in Washington wanted to do all along.
Oh, sure. The militarized police, the Department of Homeland Security, as you know, was created initially through an executive order. You get the Department of Homeland Security now, which is militarizing all the police, handing out all these electronic devices like Stingray devices police use to download your cell phone devices and all the stuff they're doing. Fusion centers came about where they're watching everything you're doing, anything you do electronically. That all came about through 9/11. And Sure, I think they use it very, very well. Again, I've sued the President of the United States. I won, by the way, Bill Clinton. I've fought politicians, and when I've been involved in any cases, I found out very carefully they have very well staffed behaviorists, psychologists that work with presidents and politicians. They know how to do it. The American people doesn't realize it. And here's the thing I say. That isn't the government, folks. You are the government. You won't be the government. We are the government. It's time to start being the government and saying, stop this stuff. We're going to take control. And if you want it, you're going to get cracked in the skull, but we can stop it. So, and I think you're correct. They use any event to assume more control because, again, I quote Orwell, the ultimate ends of power is power and control.
Right. Well, John, we have to finish up, and I want to thank you very much for being on the program. And this is so important, and you're doing such important work at the Rutherford Institute, and your books that you have written, and once again, your most recent book, Battlefield America, right here. I think everybody should get a copy of this, and hopefully you don't stay awake too long after you read it, but it's important. And, of course, we agree so strongly with John on waking up the American people. And he said something very favorable that I say all the time about there are young people out there, and we can reach them. It's just that if you're in Washington, I'm glad that John doesn't live near Washington. He gets a better chance of a better perspective, because in Washington it is so bad and so different. But if you get away and talk to some of these people and go to the campuses, although it's still a smaller group, but remember, we only need 7 or 8% in leadership positions to change things. You don't need the 51%. That 7 or 8% has to convince the 51% to go along with these ideas rather than going along with that 7 or 8% who are in charge now of our government, the media, and the movie theaters, and everything else. So that is our goal. And once again, John, thank you very much for being with us today. And to the audience, please come back to the Liberty Report soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Paul Liberty Report. You can find it on YouTube, Ron Paul Liberty Report. Something important that was discussed was the Jade Home. And, something that they've been doing for a long time, but they're taking it to a whole different scale. You'll have maybe FBI or maybe another DEA doing infiltrations of groups. Maybe they think that are running guns and drugs or, whatnot. But now we're looking at this type of training at a mass military scale. And I think it only further points to the fact that they are expecting something. Now, what is it? I do not know. But there's a lot of pointers to our economy being one thing. We have this false premise out there that the economy has gotten better because we've seen the stock market go up. But when you look at the big picture, big business hasn't failed, if you want to count that as the economy doing better. There are more people working, but a lot of them are working part-time jobs when they were working full-time, and the rate of pay that they get for the hours worked is a lot lower. Other people just stop looking for work and do things under the table or do other illegal things. And it just, I don't see the economy getting better. I see it not completely falling out from underneath of us, but it's not getting better. I've really kind of watched it really kind of. There was that small peak when they initially said it's going to get better, and I've seen multiple places where business started picking up, and then it went back down, and then it's plateaued since then. Just plateaued. They're not failing, but they're not doing good enough to think about expanding or giving any decent raises or, you know, the potential of growth is not there. Sustainability so far is there, but when you see the stock market doing what it's doing, when you see that part of the economy, you have to go, this is a bubble. And then when you figure in the foreign policies and the moves being made by China and Russia and some of these South American countries and even some of the European countries, you have to wonder, is this going to strike a blow that's going to devastate our economy? I think that's something that the government also fears, but they're not really completely focused on that, because if they were, they would go, okay, we need to open up some history books and look at what actually works. And that would be to start deregulating and allowing people to be true entrepreneurs where they don't have to, permit this, licenses, permit here, inspections here. People are like, well, we got to keep people. I don't remember any of this keeping any type of restaurant from, being susceptible to food poisoning and unhealthy conditions. I think enough people have seen, kitchen nightmares on TV and seen some of these restaurants. All those permits and things don't stop it, but it does stifle the ability for more businesses to pop up because of the regulations. And the thing is, people go, we need this to keep us. It does not stop it, for one, and it usually gives bigger business that heads up, because what happens when you do get a restaurant that might not be completely dirty, but have a few inspection problems and get fined? Well, if business has been just a little slow lately, that fine might hurt them, might hurt employees. But the fine ain't going to hurt a big chain company. And that's kind of an example now. Things like that, it really, really stifles on the creative nature of people. And, codes and regulations also make it harder for people to expand on things because they're kind of boxed in. And we just know big business can really avoid a lot of that stuff, because even if they do get fined, it doesn't hurt them. And we wonder why a lot of these small companies sell out, because, well, every time they want to try to do something, there's regulations in the way. The ones that try it might get, fined or whatever. That fine might hurt their chances at getting where they want, while big companies just don't. They might worry about it at times if it'll look bad for them, but there's other times where they'll take that chance. Small companies, you and me, don't tend to get that type of chance. And, you know, we have, again, you know, this battle going on with the American people, and a lot of tools that we have found useful in the past to get our message out there, to be seen and everything, in some senses have been hurt. Facebook, there's a lot of people leaving Facebook. I don't know what the numbers are right now, but I just personally know I know a lot of people have left Facebook or just don't use it anymore. And we've also had Facebook censor many people, along with YouTube and Google. Well, I don't know if you've heard about this new encrypted network that is out there, but a lot of people are claiming this may be the hit to Facebook that many people have been waiting for. And I have a clip here from We Are Change, the man behind an encrypted network that will take down Facebook. So they're pretty sure. So here we go.
Of wearechange.org, and we are outside the main corporate control grid system, or otherwise the New York City Stock Exchange. But right next door is the New York City Bitcoin Center. And there's an idea here festering that many people say will change the internet. You might have heard of all the recent news articles saying that Anonymous is joining together to support an encrypted network that will destroy Facebook. Well, this idea is being masterminded here by the one and only Bill Ottman of Minds.com. Now, William, what is Minds.com for people who don't know what it is?
So Minds is an open source and encrypted social networking platform that rewards people with reach just for using the app. So unlike the manipulative algorithms that Facebook and other proprietary networks uses, where they basically take away your ability to communicate with your friends, we give away views on your content just for using the app.
So we know Facebook sucks. They not only spy on you and give all your private information to governments and corporations, but they also screw you over. If you're talking about ideas that are kind of different than the status quo, you will not be seen. Our reach on Facebook has dramatically declined. So why are people saying that, you know, Minds and this new kind of algorithm will work? What is different than Facebook that Minds will have?
So you're earning points for uploading, for voting, for commenting, everything you do on the app, and stored in your wallet. You can then click boost on the content of your choice, and you can either, so I could send a boost, and I'll show you inside, but to We Are Change Minds channel, send Luke 500 points to share my thing, and then we've just done this exchange, and then Luke can use those points to increase his reach even more.
Now, I think this story kind of gained a lot of its strength because Anonymous kind of came through. What kind of anonymous group or sect came through? Give us all the details about that, because it's really fascinating seeing how, you know, you've been working on this idea for a while, but now that Anonymous, you know, it's not even a real organization, it's just an idea, kind of took place, and then it's skyrocketing everywhere, and there's news articles everywhere about this.
Absolutely. So the fact that the code is free and open source, should I pull? Okay. So that is why Anonymous is really interested, because basically they made a call to global hackers to collaborate and come together and help develop the code, help inspect the encryption, help just turn it into feature-wise the network that we really need it to become.
Would you mind showing us some of the back-end beauty that's happening behind the scenes? So again, we are here at the Bitcoin Center, and there's also a mobile app and a physical back-end that people could go on their website, right?
Yeah. So basically, we obviously have synergy with Bitcoin because it's a decentralized, open-source platform. And we have Bitcoin wallets on the desktop app. So, because you can log into Minds on Minds.com, or you can get the mobile app. Eventually, we'll be adding Bitcoin to mobile. Now, so it's all part of the same movement, the decentralized social networking and exchange peer-to-peer system. So
how many hits have you guys gotten on Minds.com?
we're still looking at the analytics. I mean, total tens of millions since we started, but just in the last, we're actually not sure in the last few days, but it's like our servers are going nuts.
Wow. Yeah. So this is actually a real potential to destroy Facebook, which hopefully will happen soon. so definitely show us some of the back end stuff. So anyone could go on Minds.com, set up an account, and then not only gain followers, but also gain credits that will help them reach new audiences as well. And then it could also buy credits to reach more of people that they didn't reach before. So unlike Facebook, where you have to pay to actually reach your audience, you could pay to reach other audiences if you do that on your back end.
Yeah, but it's not like you need money to be successful. Like if you refer a friend, you get 100 points. If you, for every swipe, you get you can get a ton of points pretty fast. And so you can get pretty serious reach. I mean, a couple people who started accounts in literally a day ago already have like 1,000 followers and are getting like way bigger reach than they get on Facebook.
Yeah. So, because our reach is like being limited, by the way.
It happened to us too, because we're actually, I'm involved in the whole alternative media network with, We Are Change and all these other alternative media sites on Facebook. And, we were driving big traffic for a few years. And so once that, sort of switch went off, we were like, well, we have to just build our own version because this isn't working anymore. This isn't sustainable for real media to get out there.
Yeah, the NSA pro-government algorithm that Facebook implemented that makes sure no real ideas get out there that challenge them or the authorities or the corporate overlords.
The Facebook algorithm and the Google algorithm actually hurt big corporate brands too. So even places like the New York Times and BBC and all the major media brands, they're also hurt by the Facebook algorithm. They took the hit in terms of their traffic too. So it's like Facebook actually, I'm sure they do censorship on specific content, but they also are screwing over everybody.
Yeah. Well, ever since they went public here, just a few blocks away, their main goal is to generate money. So when you naturally built an audience and your audience was seeing the work, now they're saying, no, if you want your audience, the people who follow you to see your work, you're going to have to pay us big money. But that's not the whole platform that Minds is working on. It's totally different. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what pissed people off the most about what Facebook did is that it was a bait and switch because first it actually wasn't full reach, but it was at least significant reach. And then they were like, you can't reach your own fans, the people who want to see your stuff. So it's just silly. Yeah. So here, should I show you some? Yes, please do. All right, well, you probably won't be able to see this too clearly, but if you go to, if you click minds.org in the footer, you can go and get access to, we released all the mobile code. We're going to be releasing all of the core code this year. This is some of the encryption code. This is, this is the homepage, minds.com. So it's Android and iOS. We're going to be releasing it on different distributions. We've been getting some awesome press coverage so far. I mean, if you just search like anonymous Facebook, open source, social networking Minds.com. It's independent, RT, International Business Times, Wired. Like it's great. Everybody's really excited because people, and the biggest thing is the people powering the network. So we're all the popular content drives to the top, kind of Reddit style. Reddit is awesome because Reddit is actually open source. It's sort of a people powered community. So we love the Reddit community. If you look at the top 100 sites in the US, only 3 are free and open source. It's Wikipedia, Reddit, and WordPress. So obviously Wikipedia is amazing. It killed old encyclopedias, and it is this just open community. So what we think is that that's inevitably going to happen with social networking too, just because people want that.
It's only a matter of time. But then also there's other problems with Reddit too, with the mods and moderators destroying content. That's also critical. Yeah. So this is going to be totally controlled by the people. Are there going to be any mods or anything else?
It's interesting because obviously we don't want to censor anything. Now, it's weird with the app stores because, with the boost mechanism, there's ratings in the app store. We could get kicked out of the app store if we allow, I want it to be everything, as long as it's nothing illegal, I want everything legal to be allowed. And but the thing is that with mature content, it gets weird on the app stores because, say, there's like a nipple, oh my God, or whatever it is, then if we let those boosts go through, we could get kicked off the app store. So we want to let as much through as possible. Long term, we're going to create as many sort of like settings so that people can have access to mature content if they want, whether that's war footage or, any kind of violence, language. So that's the goal, and we're going to do the best we can.
It's interesting. I just came from Europe, and it's very interesting how a nipple freaks the crap out of Americans. Meanwhile, there's blood and gore and heads being cut off and just like the most horrible things. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Show a nipple? No, it's not bad. But obviously, you're still, have a long ways to go. There's still a lot of work to be done. How can people help you in this process?
Great. So the best way right now is users. I mean, refer your friends to the site. You get 100 points if they tag you in the sign up. So you're just getting more views for referring the friends. The more people that we can get actively using the network, that is by far the best thing that everybody can do. If you're in New York, stop by here. Come, get involved. I'm here a lot of the time. I mean, this is pretty much an open forum, and that's why I really love being involved. Those are the main things. I mean, if we can keep the growth happening, it's already astronomical. And if we can make it continue, then there's really, honestly, a chance that stuff could start changing.
That Facebook could be finally destroyed. Imagine. William.
I don't necessarily see. The thing is, Google, Facebook, could they ever go anywhere? I don't know. But could something disrupt them? Absolutely. It's kind of like if you look at old GMO processed food. People don't really like to eat that stuff anymore because they like organic labeled food. So organic has risen up, and I really see the open source and decentralized encrypted movements. It's weird. That analogy kind of helps people digest it a little bit. No pun intended.
Just destroy them by creating something better. There you go. You have me convinced, William. Definitely check out our Minds profile. It's going to be in the description below. Thank you so much for your time. Check out minds.com, sign up, and it's definitely an interesting idea that's actually taking off. So,
okay, we are Change. We are Change on YouTube, and we are change.org. Check them out. Going to move along to a little bit of news here. Okay, give me a second here. Okay, here we go. This is from Kit Daniels out of Infowars.com. Here's why Republicans gave Obama power to ram through TPP. The false left-right paradigm explained. If you want to know why Republicans just gave President Obama more power to ram through the TPP via the TPA, just study the Hegelian dialect. By passing the TPA on Wednesday, the Republican-controlled Senate gave Obama authority to negotiate trade deals such as the TPP under fast-track measures, which denies Congress the right to change or delay international economic agreements promoted by the White House. The GOP establishment has constantly failed to show any backbone when it comes to fighting Obama, Red State reported. They're constantly telling us that the good, responsible thing is pass bill, the TPA, but we'll fight the next time. Only next time never comes. The reason why can be found in the Hegelian dialect, formulated by German philosopher George Wilhelm Hendrik Hegel, and Hegelian dialect says the human mind can't understand anything unless it can split into two polar opposites, left and right. For example, when people are talking about two political parties, Republican and Democrat, what they're actually referring to without realizing it is the thesis and the antithesis based off the Hegelian dialect. General Maddox with RealNewsAustralia.com wrote, the only real debate that occurs is just the minor differences between those two parties. Nothing is said or done about the issues that neither left or right is discussing. And establishment insider Carol Quigley revealed that revealed why there doesn't appear to be much difference between Republican and Democrat presidents such as Obama and George Bush. Quote, the argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea acceptable only to the doctrinaire and academic thinkers Quigley advocated in his book Tragedy and Hope. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extreme shifts in policy. In other words, Republicans and Democrats will publicly debate minor issues, but when it comes to the TPP, which was drafted by the internet or the transnational interests who control both parties, many of the Republicans and Democrats will toe the line and serve their master's agenda. So it really does become the whole divide and conquer, and when we look at the system is set up that every politician is about control. You don't look at government and don't see control. So going into politics for almost every single politician is about control. I want to control something. There's not really any politician that says, let me go in government and get a bill passed that completely strips the government of its authority over things. And that's where the issue is. So you want to go, well, the Democrats or the Republicans, you're going, I want the left foot to kick me in my butt. Oh, I want the right foot to kick me in the butt. You know, it's kind of a fool's game. And I think that's one of the things that's just not brought up enough. Now I got one here, and this is from the Jason Stapleton program. It's on truthandmedia.com. I'm just going to read the article. So I'm not playing the clip here, but this was a question brought up: should America become more like Denmark and Sweden? The Supreme Court laid down two devastating rulings this week. The first was essentially a rewriting of Obamacare. The court ruled that the term established by the states is ambiguous and thus allow the federal government to continue providing subsidies to individuals who are not part of a state exchange. The other big Supreme Court decision got sandwiched between Obamacare and gay marriage, and it had to do with discrimination. In its Texas housing decision, the court found that plaintiffs do not need to show there was actual racial discrimination, nor even an intent to discriminate. Instead, plaintiffs can now simply point to the racial makeup of a neighborhood and infer that from that discrimination must have occurred. It's as though we are living in an alternate reality where you can be born white but be black, where gender is a myth, where the judges write law presidents act like kings, and objective fact is replaced with subjective opinion. We are moving ever closer to the totalitarian state where laws are meaningless and those who hold power wield it indiscriminately with ever increasing intent to expand their authority over our lives. Some people think this is a great idea. They dream of a society based around democratic socialism where the state provides for us all. They point to countries like Denmark and Sweden as examples of this utopia at work, but is it really at work? Today on the show, I break down recent Supreme Court decisions, and we take a look at Denmark and Sweden to see if their model is really Eden. And I've already talked about Sweden on this show, and there's this idea of utopia, but it's not there in the way that we think. You got to remember these people pay extreme high taxes. Oh, you get free health care. Oh, you get free this. Oh, you get free that. But 60%, 70% of their income is taking. And some of the wealthiest over there were coming here to America to get certain treatments because one they could get into, it was cheaper. And those people usually operate in a way outside of the system where they're not getting totally taxed. You gotta remember the wealthy always hide their money. Only time they seem to ever get caught is when it plays into some type of narrative. I have another one here from Truth and Media I want to cover real quick. Truth and Media Group sues FEC to open presidential debates to independent candidates. Level the playing field, the group that is trying to improve the health of American democracy by opening up the fall 2016 presidential debates, filed a lawsuit this Monday in a federal district court against the Federal Election Commission. LPF was joined in the historic lawsuit by the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. The plaintiffs are represented by Alexandra Shapiro, who was Ruth Bader Ginsburg's law clerk and is now with the Shapiro Arado firm. Ms. Shapiro has won several high-profile cases lately, including an appeals court ruling in April that overturned 2 insider trading convictions. The CPD is not nonpartisan and instead promotes candidates of the Democratic and Republican parties while excluding all others from the debates. The LPF lawsuit charges that the Commission on Presidential Debates and certain of its directors have violated federal election law, including a Federal Election Commission (FEC) regulation requiring organizations like the CPD to be nonpartisan and to use objective criteria to determine who can be in their debates. The federal court complaint cites extensive evidence showing that the CPD is not nonpartisan and instead promotes candidates of Democratic and Republican parties while excluding all others from the debates. And since 2000, it has used a criterion that only the Democratic and Republican nominees could reasonably achieve in order to illegally exclude third-party and independent candidates from the debates. According to the lawsuit, the failure of the FEC, whose commissioners are members of the Democratic and Republican parties to act on an administrative complaint against the CPD, and a petition for rulemaking was arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion, and otherwise contrary to law. So here it goes. We are asking the court to either direct the FEC to find that the CPD and certain of its directors have violated the law, or to permit us to bring a civil action directly against the CPD and those directors. The suit also asks court to direct the FEC to open a rulemaking proceeding to revise its rules governing presidential debates. And they have the whole thing here on truthandmedia.com. Group sues the FEC to open presidential debates to independent candidates. Okay. Sorry, I'm having a couple issues here. Just give me a second. We have this issue, it seems, every time during my broadcast. Let's see. I think it might have to be the Skype. Okay. Now, we were talking about, we have Russia and China, and I've been talking about this a lot because I really think it is important to look at potential collapses or unrest or, bubbles popping, all that when it comes to preparing. And when you see evidence of things coming down, it tends to make you worry. Now, I think that through the TPP, they kind of want to make this North American Union and then turn the euro into something else. I'm starting to kind of see a different picture. And I don't know if this is exactly what's going to happen, but it seems like maybe this might be one of the more logical, in their view, decisions, and kind of bring the West under a currency to try to basically prevent the euro from collapsing. They'll turn it into something else, bring the U.S. in with it, and tie it to the U.S. dollar. Therefore, then you have the European countries kind of backing the U.S. dollar to try to prevent a collapse of the U.S. dollar as a petroleum reserve, the world's currency. And that's going to devastate our dollar for our pocketbooks in the long run. But I think we would be too late in doing that in the first place. And we already seen that some countries have signed on with China with the creation of this new banking system, new bank and banking system. and we see unrest with the euro and the eurozone. Now, I think if Greece falls, that even if we get this TPP that includes some type of currency deal and world banking deal, and I'm sure more loss and more loss and more loss of our sovereignty, even though it doesn't seem that matters anyways. I think gun control is one issue we should keep our eyes on here. But I think it's all going to fail if Greece falls. And it'll turn it into like a domino effect where you'll have certain European countries go along with Russia and China and create this other system. And we're going to basically have that Axis and, ally type division in the world again. And I don't think either side, even if they won, would be any better than the other side. I think we're playing a fool's game in the first place when we're giving so much authority to central figures, and we see that at those levels there is absolutely zero accountability. None whatsoever immune for life. Unless you have things like the Nuremberg trials. But I think one thing to do is keep an eye on Greece. And AMTV's put out another one. Warning, Greece could collapse on Tuesday. So I'm going to play this clip here.
Will they stay or will they go? Will they stay or will they go? Greece on the chopping block once again. The ECB, the Troika, the European Union, Angela Merkel says there's going to be a deal, and then there's not a deal. There's going to be a deal, and then there's not a deal. Now we're approaching the June 30th deadline, which I believe is next Tuesday, which means we're going to be entering over the weekend not sure and unsure of a Greek bailout. Will it all come to an end? Will Greece be the first country to exit the Eurozone? Now, again, this is going to happen whether or not people want it to happen or not. This is an engineered collapse by the Troika, by the ECB. The question is, does Greece go at the end of this month? Or is it the month after that? Or the month after that? Or the month after that? Because each successive bailout, just like pundits like Peter Schiff have been telling us for years now, when you give a bailout, you just set a precedent for bailouts, which means there's going to be future bailouts into infinity, infinitum ad nauseum. It never stops. It's like giving a teenager who overspent his credit cards another credit card and another credit card and another credit card. They don't learn anything. They don't learn how to budget. They never pay off the debt. You just give them another Amex. You just give them another card from Chase or one of these too big to fails. They never learn their lesson. Now, Greece is actually an itty-bitty, measly country. Its GDP making up just a little bitty, little baby percentage of the total European Union. But of course, it sets a precedent for the other pigs nations, the pigs. Countries like Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. If Greece goes, then will Portugal go. If Greece goes, well, then Italy go. If Greece goes, well, then Spain go. And then, the whole union just collapses before our very eyes. And I'm sure this will happen kind of around the new global engagement, the new war, obviously, that we will be fighting against the BRICS nations, namely countries like Russia and China. Billionaires from Alibaba, like Jack Ma predicting World War III. I did a video on this not too long ago. So again, the question is, will Greece stay or will it go? It's eventually going to go. It's guaranteed to go in the not too distant future. But the question is, will it leave on June 30th? it would be very interesting to see what the ECB was thinking from the inside, what the specific strategy was for the Grexit, for the exit of Greece. You know, when they let Greece go, let's say that it leaves the Eurozone overnight, let's say it happens on Tuesday, I would suspect that they would immediately meet it with some kind of backstop to prevent the markets from experiencing a shock. You know, they might let it go, they might let Greece collapse, but then they provide it with immediate liquidity and say it's leaving the Eurozone, but it's good. It's all good because we can handle it. We've put this immediate emergency liquidity backstop while the country is leaving, so this is actually a good thing. And then they would spin it as some kind of positive. All of it, again, financial rigging, financial shenanigans. It's why multi-billionaire investors like Carl Icahn said yesterday, especially in reference to the high yield market, that if more investors, prominent investors like himself, had warned the people, America, in global capital markets in 2007 of what we expected to see and was the black swan of 2008, 2009, maybe we'd be better off today. Icahn having sold his large position in Netflix, I think he realized a close to $1 billion gain. He's up like 1,000% on the investment, basically post a 7-for-1 stock split of Netflix stock. Something you can watch if you just have an interest in this is you can watch the Greek banks right now, banks like Alpha Bank. You can look up their ticker, Piraeus, if I'm saying that correctly, one of the smaller Greek banks. You can look at banks like the National Bank of Greece, which is kind of like the equivalent of Bank of America here in the United States. You can also follow the ETF, which is kind of an aggregate of the Greek economy, GREK. And you can see the activity. You can see that there's been extreme volatility in recent days. A lot of hedge funds actually unfazed by the activity, piling into some of these high-risk, very speculative investments that could potentially go to zero. Again, very high risk. But if Greece is to get another temporary bailout, could be enormous returns, specifically in the banks themselves. I wouldn't recommend that you invest in any of these areas because they are extremely high risk, extremely speculative, and you can potentially lose all of your capital at once. But Wall Street is actually all over it. And you can see it, again, with the volatility. You can see it with certain big-name hedge funds heavily invested in this area, betting on what they think is going to happen at the Troika, how they are going to massage this engineered collapse of Greece. Again, this is just a precursor to what's coming to the United States. The only difference between Greece and the U.S. is the U.S. can print its own currency, as a result of the Federal Reserve System. Greece can't, because a part of the euro, the ECB, is the only organization or entity that can print currency. Greece can't print currency itself to meet the interest payments on the debt that keeps growing, again, into infinity. We can do that here in the United States, and that is the primary difference. It's why it's financial shenanigans. What Wall Street likes to say, in a politically correct term, financial engineering. We also have the CEO. He's either the CEO or the chairman, but he's the head of Goldman Sachs. Mr. Cohn also warned of a liquidity crisis just a few days ago that very few people took notice of. I did. I was watching, and honestly, he was telegraphing, it was a major red flag, telegraphing a major liquidity event in the not-too-distant future. Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase has also warned about this, specifically in the bond market, saying you might not like, pointing a finger at you, retail investors, the price that you get on the bond funds that you might own in your retirement account when that shock hits. Because, again, the Federal Reserve providing all the liquidity to the financial system itself. Today, with quantitative easing into infinity, all that funny money, the printing at the Federal Reserve, providing and pushing and growing the bubbles that are now larger than what we experienced in 2007 and 2008, providing all that liquidity. Without it, now that they've semi-turned off the spigot of QE, poses a great liquidity risk to our system. And all these counterparties that do business with each other in the derivatives markets, trading CDSs and CDOs, these insurance contracts, et cetera, could be in major default. And there is an increase in this counterparty risk as a result of illiquidity in our system today. Again, the head of Goldman Sachs, which essentially Goldman is our government. I mean, Goldman owns Washington, D.C. I mean, these really are the unelected officials that, again, financially engineer our entire system, our market, that are really probably, arguably, maybe even more powerful or on par, at least, with the Federal Reserve, at least buddy-buddy, at least in the pockets of the Federal Reserve. Again, these are the same institutions, the giant banks that help to orchestrate the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world, trillions of dollars worth of bailouts into their pockets as a result of the financial collapse that they engineered. So keep your eye on the ball of Greece. Again, it's just a question of when, not if. Does the Troika let Greece go on Tuesday, June 30th? Is this the official exit? Or do they provide that temporary backstop once again and drag this on and out even further? I suspect we could see, honestly, the bubble get bigger from here. Dow 18,000, we could very highly likely see Dow 20,000. We see investors like Carl Icahn, these billionaires, warning us. We see Cohn warning us, retail investors. The little guy's really scared. It doesn't mean that the bubble can't be blown even bigger before it eventually pops. We saw this in 2007 leading up to the 2008-2009 crisis and crash. My instincts, my gut tells me we're probably a year away before things enter a really serious model, if that's the right word, but where we enter a very serious point of time where I think we've run all the legs that we possibly can on these shenanigans, and the result is a crisis, a shock, or a black swan, of which these billionaires are warning right now, whether or not it's Carl Icahn or it's Mr. Cohn, the head, the chieftain of Goldman Sachs. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face. I'm Christopher Green, and click the link below to support our sponsor.
Christopher Green, AMTV. Check him out. YouTube, AMTV. Okay, give me a second here. Trying to get something up here. Might be easier to do it this way. Okay. There was a poll out. I found this on Drudge, but it came from the Washington Examiner. This pastor bring it up on the phone. The ever-expanding Republican presidential field, which threatens to splinter over social issues as dark horses grab hot-button topics for attention, is being urged to stick to the economy where the real pot of voter gold sits. Concerns over the economy is the highest I've ever seen, told GOP pollster Ed Goes. Told the moderate Republican Ripened Society. He said 72% are worried about the economic downturn. Republicans need to get into the game on better turf, and that means talking in specifics about how we will bring the economy back and help create jobs that go with real recovery, added pollster David Winston. The exit polls from 2012 and 28 primaries and caucuses back them up and show that the candidate who was considered by voters to be the best on the economy usually won the state's contest. According to Winston, the economy was the top voter concern in 45 of 46 primaries and caucuses. The only exception was the 2008 Iowa caucus, when illegal immigration trumped the economy 33% to 26%. Typically, during both elections, issues like immigration and abortion were minor blips, and social issues don't dominate Southern contests. In 2012, for example, the states of Michigan, Ohio, Oklahoma, Maryland, and Wisconsin had the highest concerns about abortion, well above that among the voters of South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Winston also said that winning the economy as an issue propelled that candidate to victory. In 2012, if the candidate was winning the economy, they were winner 19 out of 20 primary caucuses. In 2008, if the candidate was winning the economy, they won 25 out of 26. He added an analysis for secrets. For example, 2012, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich won the economy as the issue in South Carolina, where he pulled off his upset victory. And Goisick, keeping the focus on the economy and not pandering to voter groups, is the key. The middle class is our target. The middle class is, by definition, 70% of the electorate. There is no middle class anymore. He told a private Ripon conference, when we talk about the African American vote and we talk about the Hispanic vote, the key to winning these votes is not approaching them as Hispanic or African Americans, but rather approaching them as middle class voters, as hardworking taxpayers, he added in a video released later to Secrets. That was out of Washington Examiners, or Washington Secrets columnist. Now, like I said, there's not really too much of a middle class anymore. What many people call the middle class, most of the poor people don't look at as middle class. They're not just above the poor people. They are football fields away from the poor people. They are not, poor people don't go, I can work hard and achieve that. They go, I would have had to been born slightly privileged and worked my butt off, and I might have been able to achieve that. So looking at what they call middle class, and really the only reason why they're called middle class is because you do have a small percentage that are elites, that their wealth, and even if you look at the top 3% to 5% of the wealthiest in America, they are football fields away from what most people consider rich. When people talk about rich people, they're talking about what the politicians are calling middle class. And in this instant, he's saying, you have to reach out to African Americans and the Hispanics, and it can't be as African Americans or Hispanics, but as middle class. Even the ones that think or are considered middle class are usually not middle class. They're usually closer to poor because of inflation and the devaluation of the dollar, which in return is double inflation. And, I look back to my grandparents' age and, look at what possibilities were there. And, it was work 1 or 2 years at the most and buy a brand spanking new car. Work 5, 6 years, pay cash for a house on property. You can't do that anymore. You will take out a 30-year loan You will pay a large amount of interest in that time period. More than likely, you'll refinance and draw it out even longer. And people are paying on stuff for a very long time. And there was a point where people couldn't get a lot for their house, their older home, but they wanted to upgrade to a newer home. So they sold their older home for what they could. They took out another small loan for 15 years, plus that cash that they had, and went and got that newer, slightly bigger home, and then refinanced it and ended up going to a 20-year loan or something. And then they get in our house and have to take out another loan, and it's 25 years, and a lot of people got ripped off. Live in the house for 30 years and you probably would have made out pretty well, because I guarantee you that house that you probably originally had probably sat on property. Now you're lucky you get a house on a quarter acre for, you know, your life's work. Middle class is no longer there. Middle class should be able to pay for their house in 5-10 years. And I'm not talking about a shack. I'm talking about a middle class home. And, you know, you look at it, things are built cheaper. They're, you know, you don't have solid wood trusses in homes, and you look at how things are built. So they're built cheaper, cost more, and you make less. And, you know, I kind of go back to the one thing that was brought up in, forget if it was the center of the house, but they were talking about when Walmart was the biggest, or when GM was the biggest corporation in America, in today's dollars, the average worker made $38 an hour. And then today, the biggest corporation in America is Walmart. And on average, in today's dollars, they make around, I think it was $9 an hour or something, maybe 10. Your home costs more, your food costs more, your gas costs more. Back then, they were making $38 an hour. And, you know, that wasn't everybody, but then you could go into a small town and things might have been cheaper, done more locally, still had a good economy in the smaller town. And things have changed to a point where, you know, I've talked to my grandfather and stuff, and he goes, you know, it's just, he goes, you know, with everything that you think we would have made it so far as, you know, Americans, that we've gone back so far. You know, what abilities and chances us younger people have compared to what they had. The freedom that they had compared to what we have. How everything is criminal anymore. And it just, we are in a situation where we don't have the ability to go along with the system and prosper in a way. And I think there's glimpses of hope, and there's a large libertarian presence out there, and I think they are making a difference, and I hope they are. And one person that I know is at least sparked a lot of conversation in the past. Adam Kokesh, I have an update from him. Freedom Homestead Workshop, and it's a quick clip here. I'm going to play from him.
Hey everybody, this is Adam Kokesh in beautiful Lancaster, New Hampshire at PorkFest 12, hosted by the Free State Project, having an amazing time. This is the halfway point on the American Campfire Freedom Tour. If you missed us coming through the southern half of the United States, I'm sorry, but we've got some amazing dates coming up in the next few months. We're going to be covering New England in July, doing this crazy loop south and back up to the northern Midwest in August, and then cutting across to doing the West Coast in September. So I hope you'll check out the link to our website for the details about those dates below. But more importantly, one of the things that we've seen on this tour is how this movement is evolving in such a beautiful way, where people aren't just developing a different way of looking at the world, but a different way of engaging with it based on the values of freedom. And we see people groping towards it one piece at a time and doing one thing that reduces their contribution to statism or coercion. And it's so amazing to see that so many people in this freedom movement are really stepping up and not just talking about freedom, but living by the values of it. So in that vein, I'm happy to announce that our nonprofit, the Freedom Fund, is going to be hosting the Freedom Homestead Workshop in March and April of next year near Flagstaff, Arizona. And over 8 weeks, 12 student staff and 30 students will build 6 different alternative building method-based one-bedroom homes that are completely self-sufficient and off the grid. We're going to be doing earthship, cordwood, cob, straw bale, underground, ceramic, possibly a few others. And we'll be taking classes from amazing experts on every single skill you could possibly want to homestead, start to finish, from buying land to negotiating the legal system to self-defense to growing your own food to all the construction skills involved like carpentry and metalworking, everything you could possibly imagine. So we've already got some incredible instructors on board. Mike Adams, the health ranger, naturalnews.com, is coming out to talk about food production and clean eating. Check out his website, foodrising.org. Cody Wilson, defensedistributed.com, the creator of the first 3D printed gun, the Liberator, is coming out to do a class on 3D printing and 3D printing guns. And none other than my good friend Jordan Page, the musician, who's actually not coming out to teach music, but he's got a 6th kid on the way, and he's going to be giving a class on unschooling and raising free-range children. I know that scares the statists. We don't want to eat the kids. We want them to actually be free and respected and nurtured as individual human beings. So all of this is coming together, and it's very exciting to be able to announce that we are opening up applications today. You can email us at adam@thefreedomline.com. If you want to apply to be a student staff member, you can come out 2 months early, so January, February, March, April, and be able to attend all of the classes for free, help us get ready, and be a site supervisor for one of the construction projects. You can apply to be a student, one of the 30 students, and come out for the 2 months. We'll provide you with a place to sleep, a cot and a sleeping bag at least, showers, and food for the entire time that you're there. And if you'd like to be an instructor and contribute to the learning process that way, we're also going to be doing a video series of this so that we can go to people who are striving to live by these values and need that encouragement to say, look, it's just one big commitment away to live by these values. And maybe you don't even need all of this information, but if you have this, if you get all of this, there's nothing else you need to live more free. And it's almost a sad contradiction of people who say they believe in freedom to sit and complain and living in the most statist environment possible, when it's so easy to step out of that lifestyle, live a far more satisfying life, practically retire early to be the engineer of your own life and the entrepreneur of your own happiness.
Adam Kokesh on YouTube. Check out his channel. PorkFest, there's one festival that is a large gathering of libertarians, and it's spreading of the libertarian message and the message of freedom and liberty and truth. And a good place also to get into living off the grid and really everything related to freedom and the direction the country is headed and ways around it. So check them out. Okay. Get my browser to work again. There we go. For some reason, when I'm using Skype, it seems I have to turn okay. Yeah, it seems I have to close my browser and open it back up every once in a while. And I turned off all this Skype add-on crap for the browser, I think. Okay. And, okay, I'm just gonna have to play a clip. I was trying to bring the article up. And for some reason, the site's not responding. I don't know if I have the clip. I think I've seen it on Next News Network too, so let me check there real quick, guys. Okay, I got two clips here from Next News Network. Play this first one. Okay, this is breaking. Hundreds of troops occupying Ocala, Florida, not part of Jade Helm.
What's up, everybody? Gary Franchi here reporting for the Next News Network. Just got a tip in from one of our subscribers that 600 to 700 military personnel have recently occupied Ocala. That is direct from the Ocala Post, and they're even saying, this is their headline, military occupy Ocala by the hundreds. Shocking image of just military vehicles. They even say in the article that they have taken over the Westport High School parking lot. It's essentially called Operation Guardian, and it's supposed to end on June 25th, which is today. They say that the 7 different military units will be training in search and rescue, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear and explosives. There's going to be a hazards training center located at Southwest 67th Avenue. They say that it's not related to Jade Helm 15. The reporter for the Ocala Post did request information about it. But here's the curious thing: when you take a look at the high school, you take a look at an aerial photo of Westport High School, it actually lines up with the Jade Helm logo. So, I don't know. I'm just taking a look at it, and that's the first thing that struck my attention. But they say it's not related to Jade Helm 15, which starts in a few weeks. So anyway, just want to give you a quick heads up that that's what's happening right now in Ocala, Florida. That's the latest domestic military movements, military drills, military exercises that we should be keeping an eye out for. So I'm keeping an eye out for you at the Next News Network. Remember, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. That's how we grow. Be safe out there. Have a great day.
So we already pretty much know that there's all kinds of awkward and weird training going on out there. What are they training for? It seems that they're training for rebels, but it also at times seems like they're training for something that is not going to be something that's going to be grassroots started, but they will blame it on the grassroots. Kind of a red flag that maybe they're working on some type of false flag thing, and it's almost like they're kind of done with having so many of us that they have to worry about taking back power, that they kind of, the war on the American people seems to be getting closer, and they're not really worried about ISIS and all this when they're willing to kind of arm them, maybe. But I think that at the same time that their egos might be a little big. I'm hoping that there's still plenty of good people in the military, even though we know that there's been a lot of generals replaced. Sorry, I think I was having an issue there. Looked like my computer internet started freezing up. Okay. I'm going to play a Mark Dice video here. I'm trying to figure out which channel I want to get from. He's got 2 of them. I don't know which one he had it on. Yeah, it's the second one in case the first one goes down. Okay, I think he had it on his regular Mark Dice channel. Double check. Okay. Now, one thing I've talked about for a long time is teaching our youth and making sure they're educated. Now, one thing that I've noticed is people not knowing what things are worth, asking way too much for certain things. And, well, here's one from Mark Dice. Selling a 10-ounce silver bar for $10 when it's worth $160. Here's the experiment. So I definitely want to play this. And this is why we need to take education into our hands and not leave it up to the public school system. Public school system will make them go, oh yeah, you need a Federal Reserve note. Gold and silver is not worth that, even though you have to pay a whole bunch for gold and silver. It's not made into jewelry. It's not worth anything. That's not what you're usually. You pay the inflated price on gold and silver when it's made into jewelry. Here we go.
I'm Mark Dice, standing outside this coin shop with a 10-ounce silver bar of pure silver bullion worth about $160, where I'm going to try to sell it to random people for $10, just to see if they know anything about silver. Having a special today. It's a 10-ounce silver bar for $10. It's 99 cents an ounce if you'd be
pretty cool. Can I touch it? Oh, that's pretty cool.
Would you be interested in purchasing that?
Not today.
Not today.
I'm actually on a mission right now.
For 99 cents an ounce?
I'm okay.
You're
Thank you.
okay.
Here you go.
Thank you.
I'm good, man.
You don't want it?
Yeah.
You've got too many of them laying around the house?
Just so many, dude.
Just taking up too much space?
Just in the way.
Just need to clear out some of those silver
I know, man. I should start spending them.
Okay, I'll go find someone who wants the silver bar then.
Yeah, man.
All right, thank you. You don't have $10? How much do you have on you?
I got some food stamps.
We can go into the coin shop over here. We can verify that it's real.
I gotta get going.
Oh,
thanks.
green?
Yeah. No, thank you.
$5 for the silver bar?
No, thanks.
99 cents. Just give me 99 cents for this 10-ounce silver bar.
I'm okay, thank
Why
you.
not?
I don't really want it.
You don't want it?
No.
Not even for 99 cents?
No, it's cool.
So better things to spend your money on? Give me a 10-ounce silver bar for $1.
That's all right, thank you.
It's a 10-ounce silver bar for $10 if you're interested.
Oh no, thank you.
$5.
No,
99 cents.
no, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
99 cents
I
for
have no cash on me at all.
99. You got to want to trade it for a piece of gum or
No,
something?
I don't even have gum. It's a little noodle bowl.
A noodle bowl.
Yeah.
Give me that noodle bowl and I'll give you this 10-ounce bar of silver.
I know some people that will definitely say yes to you. I can send your way that are in my store.
You're not interested?
I'm not. I'm sorry. I have a lot going on.
How much did that noodle bowl cost you?
$1.99.
Okay, so you'd rather have that than a worthless 10-ounce bar of silver?
At this point, yes. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, you guys.
$10 for this?
$10 for that? No, I'm good.
You don't want to buy it for $10? I'm just trying to get a burger. You know, they don't take 10-ounce silver bars at the burger joints. So.
What do you?
It's a little tarnished, you know.
Yeah, sorry, man. Can't help.
$10?
Nah, can't help you, man.
You got too many of them laying around?
Oh, I just got like stacks and stacks of them, homie. You know it, dude.
All right, man. I'm just checking. Got some silver there in your mouth. We're giving away a 10-ounce silver bar for $10 today. If you're interested.
No, I'm good, bro.
I want
I'm good. Yeah, I appreciate it.
10-ounce silver bar for $10.
I don't know what that is, man.
We can go into the coin shop right over here. We can verify that it's real.
I'm good, man.
$5.
I don't have any money at all.
How much you pay for those headphones?
Like $160.
So just give me $10 and I'll give you the 10-ounce silver bar.
I don't have $10. I don't carry cash on me.
You don't carry cash
No.
on you? Not even $10?
No, I don't have any dollars. In check.
Would you trade your Starbucks for my 10-ounce silver bar?
No, I would not.
It's half drank.
I don't want
Come on,
that.
trade. You don't want this?
No.
Is it because it's tarnished?
I mean, yeah, it's not very attractive.
It's
is
not
it?
very attractive. Just give me your Starbucks for this
No.
10-ounce silver.
See, I gotta go now. Bye, good luck.
No, I honestly don't need it.
Don't need a silver bar.
No.
It's a 10-ounce
How do you even have
silver
that
bar.
silver bar?
Well, you can buy them like at the coin shop right over here. We could go in there and we can verify it's real.
What's the point? I mean,
Well, some people like to own silver
Yeah.
bars and silver coins.
If you buy it, do you like win something? Like the first person, it's like one of those things. Like the first person that buys it, you're gonna.
Well, there is a catch to this interview, and
I knew there was a catch.
the catch is that if you would have bought it for $10, you could have went right over to that coin shop and sold
Probably
it
worth like $100.
immediately for $160 cash in about 2 minutes.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Should
Sorry.
we do it?
Better
Oh, we
luck
already missed it.
Better
Do
luck
it.
next time. Well, nobody wanted to buy my 10-ounce silver bar, so I think I'll hold on to it for now. You never know what it's going to be worth in the future. I'm Mark Dice. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Check out some of the previous videos in the playlists, and stay tuned. There's more videos coming soon.
Please tell me that's just the California people. Please tell me that's not all of America, but I'm afraid it really probably is. And there's been reports out there that they're expecting silver, because of a 7-year cycle, to possibly get close to 3 digits. And I don't know if that's true. I don't think it would be true. I don't expect it. But it wouldn't surprise me if our economic collapse. They're expecting that in 2016. Well, if our economic collapse happens between now and then, well, I definitely would see 3-digit silver. Gold's probably going to be untouchable by then. Okay, I'm going to cover a little bit of news before we come to the end of the broadcast. Okay, one I have here from truthandmedia.com from Derek Bros. EPA will study effects of glyphosate on endangered species. As a part of a settlement with the Center for Biological Diversity, the EPA will be forced to study the impacts of the 2 most commonly used herbicides on endangered plants and animals within the United States. The Center for Biological Diversity, a nonprofit conservation organization dedicated to the protection of endangered species and wild places, filed a lawsuit with the EPA for not studying the effects of pesticides and herbicides on endangered species. The nonprofit also agreed to a settlement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, requiring the agency to analyze impacts on endangered species across the country from 5 pesticides. The EPA will now analyze the impacts of atrazine and glyphosate. The agency will complete the assessment by June 2020. Atrazine has been linked to an increased risk of birth defects. Glyphosate, the key ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup, has also been called probably carcinogenic by the World Health Organization. Brett Hartle, Endangered Species Policy Director at the Center for Biological Diversity, said the settlement was the first step to reining in the widespread use of dangerous pesticides that are harming both wildlife and people. This settlement will finally force the EPA to consider the impacts of glyphosate, widely known as Roundup, which is the most commonly used pesticide in the United States, on endangered species nationwide, said Hart. The EPA has not studied the ecological impacts of glyphosate since 1993. In other herbicide news, the EPA also rejected a petition from the Natural Resources Defense Council that was seeking a review of glyphosate to prevent unreasonable adverse effects to the monarch butterfly. The agency at this time has not determined that glyphosate causes unreasonable adverse effects to the monarch butterfly, noted EPA. In its response, the EPA highlighted the fact that President Obama recently launched the White House Pollinator Task Force plan. AgriPulse reports that the NRDC also sued the EPA in October in an attempt to block the approval of Monsanto and Dow's Endless Duo herbicide, which they say is also responsible for the loss of monarch butterflies. The product is a combination of glyphosate and another herbicide known as 2,4-D. NRDC said that in a statement that since 1993, use of glyphosate has increased tenfold, yet the agency has never considered the herbicide's impact on monarchs. But at least they're looking into it. After they approved it. Again, you know, it's because government has allowed it to exist and basically will be the protection force over, you know, to allow them to continue to use things like that. And even if people know, it's pretty obvious, or, you know, that something causes an issue, now it has to go back through the government to get disapproved. Instead of going, okay, you know, this is screwing people up and we got enough evidence to, you know, go after you for it. It has to be presented to these people, and then these people have to present it to these people, and then they'll open a review and a study. That'll take till 2020, so how long has it been in use and how many people are affected by it? Oh, we can have, you know, this lawsuit against the company, and, you know, you'll get your $20 by the end of the class action lawsuit. For health effects that may also affect your children and your children's children and your children's children's children. You can check that out at truthandmedia.com. Now I had one here also that I've seen from InfoWars. Why the TSA may stop accepting your driver's license. Accepting the Real ID Act would mean accepting outside intervention in state affairs. This past April, my fiance Chris noticed a typo on his Washington state driver's license. His name read Christopher, or Christopher. I replied with an outrageous laugh and nonsensical taunts. Christopher, the cat, Christopher usual. I was having a ball. I needed the name on my license to match the name on my car title exactly to be able to ship my car overseas. Chris explained, not even getting into the problems that may arise when applying for an overseas driver's license. And Washington requires me to go in person to get this fixed, even though it was their error. My face dropped. Chris is in the military, currently stationed in southern Arizona for a class, with his next assignment in Germany starting this fall. Going back to Washington would be next to impossible with his schedule, not to mention a wedding ceremony this summer. So just get an Arizona license, I told him. Problem solved. Arizona licenses won't be valid with TSA next year, he casually replied. This is ridiculous, I thought, but as I began digging deeper to find out what the heck was happening, I realized it's true. It's still ridiculous. How can an entire state risk keeping its citizens grounded? It turns out several are doing it. Travelers with driver's license from Arizona, Maine, Louisiana, and New Hampshire, as well as American Samoa, may soon find themselves in a bind. The Real ID Act of 2005. It's all because of the Real ID Act of 2005. A set of federal standards passed after 9/11 aimed at making license harder to counterfeit. Several states, including Arizona, rejected the mandates. State law currently prohibits Arizona from complying with these federal requirements. Accepting the Real ID Act would mean accepting outside intervention in state affairs, say opponents, who feel the bill is too sweeping and intrusive. Some worry that this is a way for the federal government to create a national identity card. Others think that it will act like a tracking device, recording people's whereabouts and providing the government with a way to spy on them. This originally came from smartertravel.com, but I found it at InfoWars. To comply with the act, states would need to include typical information on licenses: name, date of birth, gender, license number, and photograph, address, and signature, in addition to machine-readable technology with defined minimum data elements and security features to prevent duplication or counterfeiting. To issue these licenses, citizens would have to show proof of identity, including date of birth, proof of social security number, and documentation of address. The federal government recommends states offer an alternative labeled not for federal identification, so residents that prefer to opt out of the federally compliant version can do so, whether for religious reasons or because they don't want to verify proof of citizenship. The new system will also require states to retain paper or digital copies of source documents, facial image capture, and for states to provide electronic access to all other states' database, including data printed on licenses and driver's histories. Because of this, some state lawmakers and citizens believe this data will be accessible to federal officials through the Department of Homeland Security. Maintains there is no federal database of driver information. Each jurisdiction will issue its own unique license and maintain its own records. Timeline for enforcement. The DHS says Real ID enforcement for boarding aircraft will happen no sooner than 2016. But enforcement in other areas has been rolling out since 2014. Those with non-conforming licenses are already barred from entering certain federal buildings unless they have alternate identifications such as a passport or permanent residency card. It wouldn't be surprising if airline enforcement is pushed back, given the non-committal time frame, plus the fact that DHS promises the public will have ample advance notice before ID requirements for boarding aircraft changes. You can read the rest of it at smartertravel.com. You can also find it at infowars.com. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay free. Seek for the truth. Stay tuned on ucy.tv.